What is up, everybody? Recording this video on the last day of 2023. It is December 31st at exactly 2:41 p.m. Central Standard Time. Lighting's not super great in my apartment, especially during the winter. So from like the months of December to February, the our whole one side of our apartment is glass, and the sun, as you know, in the winter gets much lower. So we get direct sunlight in the winter. It's actually funny. We live in Texas. We use more AC power in the winter than we do in the summer because the sun is directly it facing our apartment. And like I said, it's all glass, so it like magnifies and heats up the apartment. But in the summer, the sun is directly over our apartment, so there's no sunlight coming in, and we don't have to use as much AC when it's 100 degrees out, but we do when it's like 50 to 70 degrees out. Very weird, but that's why the lighting is shitty. Guys, I'm excited for this one. If you're listening on the podcast, I hope you enjoy. If you're watching on YouTube, I hope you enjoy. And if you're one of my staff members watching this or listening to this, I hope you enjoy as well. I definitely need a proper shave. It looks like I've been in the cave for a little bit, and I have been working really hard the past couple of days post holiday. I was very behind on work. I had to get caught up, and we grinding. So really no time to shave or get a haircut. But let's get after it. This is going to be a great one. I always like doing this podcast or this episode at the end of the year as more of a reflection, a documentation, a conversation with myself, and also how I'm going to rectify these challenges. So what we're going to go over is the 5 biggest mistakes that I believe that I made in 2023. And once again, I hope you guys find this valuable. Maybe you don't have the same mistakes as me, but maybe it helps you reflect on your mistakes in 2023. We're all human. We all make mistakes, but the greatest mistake of all is not learning from your mistakes. So right before I hit the record button, I sat down, I thought, what were my 5 biggest mistakes this year? And then I wrote down underneath those five biggest mistakes what I personally am going to do to be better, what I'm going to do to make sure that I don't repeat the same mistakes. Because that's what the definition of insanity is. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So without further ado, let's talk about Chad's mistakes. And once again, listen to this. This isn't, I don't want this to be just about me. The reason I'm recording this is I want to show you guys that it's okay to make mistakes. I also want to show you that it's important to reflect on your mistakes, but equally, I want to show you that it's more important to make sure that you don't make the same mistake again. And the way that we do that is we have we have intentional time documenting the mistakes and then coming up with action plans to make sure we don't repeat them. So that's the value in this. So as you're listening, think through your mistakes, maybe break out pen and paper and write them down, and also think of your action items for 2024 to be able to rectify those as well. All right, mistake number one. So if you're a team member of mine, if you're a staff member and you're listening to this or you're watching this, you've heard me say this mistake before. I think this was one of my biggest mistakes as the leader of NLCA. So throughout the whole entire year, we've had anywhere from 30 to 35 staff members. And the message that I pushed in 2023 was that the economy is not in a good position. And the reason that I pushed this message is I had a lot of people that make a lot more money than me and are a lot better at business than me say that. And I really bought into the headlines. I bought into the hype. I bought into my external circumstances not being great for me to be able to thrive within those external circumstances. And that was the 110% the wrong way to lead. So that's what I kept communicating to the team, is that the economy is struggling, the economy is hard, we got to continue to push through. And what this did is that it created that perception for my team members, and it also created that perception for me, right? And anytime, whether you want to admit it or not, subconsciously, that's going to affect your actions, that's going to affect your thought process, and that ultimately is going to affect your results. So in 2024, I am making a vow. I'm putting my flag in the ground. I am not going to buy into headlines. All right, there's going to be a fuck ton of headlines in 2024. Why? It's an election year, right? In November, everybody's going to be voting for a new president. All right, and anytime there's an election year, there is always chaos, right? There is always chaos. There is two sides fighting against each other. You see it in the media, right? You see it out in the world, right? So there's going to be a lot of chaos in 2024, which means there's going to be a lot of headlines in 2024. So what better year for me to rectify my wrong than 2024? So what I personally am going to do to make sure that I do not buy into the headlines and I remain optimistic is I'm going to focus on our economy. All right. So our economy means I'm going to focus on NLCA and NLCA's economy. So what's going on within NLCA? I'm going to focus on my personal health and fitness. I'm going to focus on my personal development, and I'm going to focus on my relationships. I'm going to focus on what's going on in my world, right? Everybody has their own individual world. Everybody has their own perspective, but if you buy into the world that the news wants you to believe, then it's always going to infiltrate and affect your personal world as well. So no more in 2024. We're not buying into any headlines. And when I think about the specific action item, yes, I can say that I'm going to focus on our economy all day long. That's great, right? That's a mindset shift, but there has to be a specific action item. There has to be something that I have to do less of. And I don't watch the news, but where I do get news-like information is on TikTok. So when I'm done working, it's like 8 o'clock, or usually I'm done working around 7:30, but I sit down on the couch around 8:30, and I'll usually scroll TikTok for 20-30 minutes before I go to bed. And a lot of the accounts that pop up for me on TikTok are very, business related, or they're individuals who make a lot more money than me. And that's where I kind of picked up on this notion, is I heard a lot of people that I trust talk about this negative economy in 2023. And once again, that affected my reality. So my action item in 2024 is less TikTok time. There's nothing good on TikTok. Yes, there's some funny videos. Yes, it's cheap dopamine. Yes, it helps you tune out the world outside. It helps you tune out the stressors, but there's nothing good, right? There's nothing really good on TikTok. So I am reducing dramatically my TikTok intake. And instead, I'm going to replace that with being more intentional with my wife during those 20 to 30 minutes that I would have been spending on TikTok. So that's my mistake. That's my action item. That's number one. All right, number two. This is a hard one for me to admit, but not being. I'm just going to read it word for word off of my notes here. Not being as consistent with the off the field stuff that got me here. So if you just catching you guys up on my story, I started online coaching in 2015. That's when I started growing my online fitness business. My online fitness business I had from 2015 to 2020. My most successful years as an online fitness coach were between 2018, 2019, and 2020. And the things that got me to that point, and then in 2020, I started NLCA, and we had rapid growth from 2020, 2021, and 2022. And 2023 was a harder year for NLCA. So during that 6-year stint where I had a lot of financial and business success, there was a lot of things that I did off the field that I must have let that I let off the gas in 2023. And it wasn't, and this is the part that's really hard, is I work really hard. I do. I wake up early, I work late, I do work really hard. But it's such a game of inches, and I must have, and I didn't catch myself. It must have been subconscious, but I must have got comfortable in some way, shape, or form. And that's the part that's the hardest for me to admit, because I always would tell myself that I'm going to be the type of person that never gets comfortable. And like I said, it's interesting because my work hours never reduced, right? My work hours never reduced. I still was putting as much effort, if not more effort, into the business, but I got less out of the business. So when I really think about it, why is that? I noticed that I was less consistent with the off the field stuff. All right. So what I mean by off the field is the stuff that I did when I wasn't on the field. On the field means working at my computer, right? There were specific things that I did consistently off the field that got me to be successful, and then continued that success throughout those 6 years. What those things were was investing in mentorship, investing more into my health and fitness, having a morning routine that allowed me to focus on my personal development, and reading more books were really the big things that and visualizing were really the big things that I identified. And in 2023, it's not that I didn't do any of those things. I did do those things, but I noticed that I had inconsistencies. There were spurts where I was super like on it. I was doing all the off the field stuff and all the on the field stuff. And those were the times where business was best. But then I would also have spurts where I wouldn't do that stuff. And that's where business was the hardest. And that's when it struggled the most. And once again, wrapping up this point in my reflection, it's not that I reduced my workload. It's not that I stopped working. It was that I didn't focus on the off the field stuff that helps the on the field stuff. And that hurts, right? That really hurts. And that just being honest and truthful with myself, that really hurts to say because I told myself I would not be that type of person. And in 2023, I was. And that's one, it's fucking hard. It's a hard pill to swallow, but two, it's extremely motivating to make sure that that never happens again. So, my action item in 2024 to make sure that this never happens again is this year I'm going to invest in a health coach, which I already did. I'm going to invest in a life mentor, which I've never done before, but I'm excited to do. And then I'm also going to invest into a business mentor, which, like I said, I haven't done in over 12 months or about 12 months. I haven't invested in a business mentor. So I'm going to invest back into mentorship. And then I'm also going to create a consistent routine that holds me accountable to all the other off the field stuff that I was investing time into to be able to grow my business. And I've already created that routine. I've already created a tracker for that routine, and I've created a daily checklist for that routine as well. So that will be rectified. I will never make that mistake again. It was the hardest pill for me to swallow this year. And it's very uncomfortable for me to even talk about it on a video that I know at least 50 to 100 people are going to watch. All right, we're going to move on to number 3. This is another one that is a hard pill for me to swallow. And I just want to preface before I say the thing that I'm going to say, I don't have a problem. Like I don't have like an alcohol problem or a substance problem. However, in 2023, I think the stress of the year led me to use more substance and alcohol than I would have liked to use. And man, I know this is just as much as the next person, but nothing good comes at the end of a bottle. Nothing good comes at the end of having drinks. The only thing that comes from that is you have a short-term little relaxation, and then the next day you feel like shit and it affects your productivity. So my next mistake that I made in 2023 is I let the stress of the year weigh down on me, and I definitely leaned into substances as a relaxer or a stress reliever. And those substances are alcohol, which I would have on the weekend, and I would have more of than I liked. And it's not like I went out and partied. It was at friends' dinners, or if I'm just hanging out here in the apartment, I would have more than I would have liked to admit that I had. And then the other one, and this one I'm extremely not proud of at all, is Adderall. It's not like I had a problem, but it was more so that I leaned on it more than I would have liked to. I let the stress of the year weigh down on me, and I leaned on substance to get me through. Alcohol being one, which we just talked about, and the other one is Adderall. And like I said, if you've ever taken Adderall before, it can make you a superhuman, right? It can make you a superhuman. You're extremely productive. You get a fuck ton of work done. But once again, it's all temporary, right? It's all short. It's a short-term fix because once you're off the Adderall, you have what goes up must go down. You have a crash and you feel like shit the next day. And another thing I noticed when I was using Adderall is I would create more work for myself because you have so much pent-up energy from Adderall that I was like, okay, cool, I got everything done. What else can I do? Let me create this. Let me create this. Let me create that. And it's almost like this manic energy. And that can put a lot of stress on you. That could put a lot of stress on your spouse. That could put a lot of stress on your team. And it is not the right decision. And it is never the right decision. And once again, I'm not proud of that. And in my use of Adderall, it's not like I used it for the whole entire year. There was a couple months out of the year that I leaned on it, but I'm not proud that I made that decision. That is one that I'm regretful of. And another thing that is, you could probably hear in my voice, it's another thing that is hard for me to admit on camera, that I know that people are going to watch that. Now, all right, getting into the action item. How am I going to make sure that that doesn't happen again in 2024? One, focusing on better stress relievers, health and fitness, reading a book, building my relationship, strengthening my relationship with my wife and my parents and my brothers, right? Leaning into getting better at those off the field things that we just talked about. But also, I'm an individual that is really good at tracking. So tracking is something that I know, if I'm tracking something, if I have a tracker for something, that's like my best accountability system. Is I know if it's on a to-do list or a tracking sheet, I know I'm going to get it done. And this year, I'm allowing myself 18 times out of the year where I can partake in drinking. And that doesn't mean, like getting drunk and, partying. Once again, I'm not a partier, but it means I can have a couple of drinks at a dinner, or I can have a couple of drinks at an outing or a holiday or something like that. So 18 times out of this year, 18 times out of the 365 days, which I believe is 4% of the year, I will allow myself to have a couple of drinks. In terms of Adderall, there is no use of Adderall at all. That is not my standard. That is something that I'm extremely shameful of. And once again, it's hard for me to admit that I leaned into something like that, but I will not be using Adderall in 2024. That is a big no-no for me, and not something it's not a path that I want to go down. So that is completely removed. All right, so that's mistake number 3. Mistake number 4, not up-leveling the people that I am surrounded with. I've talked about this one before, and this is like no shame to my current friend group, but the best friend groups should have 3 categories of friends. You should have people behind you that you are acting as a mentor to pull those individuals up. You should have people at your level where you guys can grow together and learn together. And then you should have a group of individuals that are above you that can pull you up. When I moved down to Austin, I was the small fish in our friend group. I was the individual, for talking financially, I was the individual who was making the least, had the smallest business. It was really, I was also the youngest in our friend group. And really, in just all facets of life, I was behind in this friend group. And I told myself, one day I'm going to be number one in this friend group. One day I'm going to be the best in this friend group. And lo and behold, and I'm not trying to say this in like I'm an asshole or egotistical way. If we're talking financial figures, I'm one of the higher earners in our current friend group. But that's not great, right? I'm not proud of saying that. Yes, that's great. It's an awesome accomplishment. But I'm not proud of saying that, because when you are the best in a room, that's the worst place for you to be, right? That is the worst place for you to be, because you're not learning anymore, right? Then you're just serving as the mentor, but you are no longer the mentee, right? Therefore, it can stall growth. So one of the big mistakes that I made in 2023 is not introducing or finding new friends. Not that I want to replace my current friends, because like I said, I need all 3 of those categories, and I love my current friends, but I do need people that I can grow into, or people that I can learn from, or I can become a mentee to. So in 2024, what I'm going to do to rectify that is, one time every 2 months, I'm going to attend a conference, or I'm going to attend a local event here in Austin for entrepreneurs, where that's going to be very uncomfortable for me. I hate labeling myself, but if I were going to put a label, I would say I'm more introverted than extroverted. I'm more of a recluse. I like to do my thing. I love my routine. I love the people that I hang out with, and I have a hard time getting outside of that capacity. But in 2024, I'm going to challenge myself. So one time every 2 months, I'm going to attend an event or a conference that I know nobody at. And I'm just going to attend, and I'm going to be forced to shake hands. I'm going to be forced to have conversations with individuals. And I'm hoping that that gets me in rooms where I'm the small fry again, and I can meet individuals that I can learn and grow from. So that is mistake number 4, not up leveling those around me. And once again, that is an uncomfortable, me getting out and putting myself out there is a very uncomfortable thing, believe it or not. All right, number 5, we're getting into the 5th and final mistake. intentional action. This is a word, actually, Jeremy, if you're listening to this, I loved that you mentioned this word on our most recent brainstorm that we had, because it's so fucking true. If you're trying to go from 0 to 7 figures, you need messy action, right? You need to be an absolute maniac, balls to the wall, messy action, do everything you possibly can, scratch and claw at every inch. And if I'm having honest self-reflection, I'm good at that and I thrive in that. I thrive in messy action. I'm really good at scratching and clawing at every opportunity and climbing my way up to a particular point. However, that mindset and that way of behavior can only serve you for so long. You can only grind yourself to a certain point where you're actually doing a disservice. All right. So the one thing I think, or another thing I think in 2023 that I had a mistake on, is I'm still of the mindset of messy action and not intentional action. All right, a lot of you guys know this, that I have aspirations of getting NLCA to becoming an 8-figure company, and we posed this question in our leadership conversation the other day. If we're trying to go from 7 to 8 figures, is messy action really the principle or the behavior that's going to get us there? And the answer is no. The answer is no. What's going to get NLCA from 7 to 8 figures is intentional action. And what that means is spending time on the few things that have the greatest leverage of growth, right? If you can imagine a lever, right? What I was doing is I was grabbing all the small levers to then gain a little bit of traction, and then eventually I hit 7 figures, right? But if I want to get from 7 to 8 figures, I need to find the few levers, the 2 to 3 levers that have the greatest leverage. And if I can, my pit stains, if I can pull down that big lever, that will get us the greatest ground. All right. Hopefully that was a helpful analogy for you. But yeah, I mean, messy action has gotten me here, but messy action is not going to get me there. So if I'm looking at myself in the mirror, what I need to do is I need to take more intentional action. And the action item that is going to hold me accountable to that is there may be some principal changes in NLCA. There may be some company tenant changes in NLCA to redefine the behaviors that are going to get the company and myself to the point that we want to get it to. So that's in the works, but I'm feeling pretty confident, 99.99% confident that those principal behaviors, those tenant changes will happen. And I'm a man of principle. I'm a man of values. I'm a man who lives by tenants. And if I have a tenant that has, officially been changed, it will be used in my language, and it will be replicated in my behavior as well. So this was a hard podcast to record. A lot of honesty, a lot of hard reflection, a lot of just truth. And hopefully you guys respect that. And hopefully this was helpful for you guys to take a good hard look in the mirror, because that's what's needed. And I know I talked a lot about financial growth and success in this podcast, but that's needed in anything. If you want to have a better relationship, if you want to have a better relationship with yourself, if you want to have better personal development, better health and fitness, it takes a hard look in the mirror, right? And one thing I give myself grace and credit for is I'm very self-aware. I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not good at. And this is certainly areas that I need to be better at. And these are certainly areas that I will be better at in 2024, not just for myself, but for my team, for my clients, and for my family. So hopefully this was helpful for you guys. I love you guys. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.